Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to review somewhat of a legend. This is a beer that I've wanted to review for a hell of a long time, so I'm really excited for this one. For this review then we are going to head over to America once again. We're going to go out to the west coast, to the state of California, the home of craft beer, to the northern part of the state, a city called Santa Rosa, to the north of San Francisco and the west of Sacramento, and we're going to visit a brewery who are really highly regarded. So for this one we are going to have a look at my first beer from Russian River Brewing Company, and this one is the legendary Pliny the Elder. So this one comes in at 8% ABV and it's a double IPA, although we would probably refer to it these days as a double West Coast IPA. And for a long time this was considered the IPA that you had to try. And you know, it still is a kind of icon of the IPA style, an icon of the American craft brewing world. So yeah, very lucky that I'm able to try this one for you here. The one thing I didn't realise about it actually until I got this beer was that it was a double IPA. I thought it was around a kind of 7% or something like that. So when I got the beer in the box, I was really surprised to learn that it was an 8% double IPA. So a nice surprise actually. And like I say, I'm just really curious to try this one. I wonder what it is about this beer that makes it so special. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. So for this review, a massive shout out and thank you to Chris Contreras, an American dude living in Belgium who travels the world with his work, picks up lots of different beers for me along the way and then mails them to me when he gets back to Belgium. He's a massive craft beer nerd and he's been following the channel now for a good little while actually. He sent me a lot of crazy Belgian lambics and stuff like that, some German stuff and lots of different things from over in the States that I would struggle to get a hold of otherwise. So Chris, huge thank you to you for making this review possible. This is one of the beers that I've wanted to try for a very long time. If you guys have watched the channel for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of the West Coast IPAs. So yeah, this beer is a little bit of, I guess you could say this is a little bit of a biblical moment for me. But yeah, thank you to Chris once again for making this review possible, and I hope that you guys watching enjoy this review as well. I hope you enjoy the kind of American mini-series of beers that I'm reviewing that Chris sent me at the moment. So yeah, this one should hopefully, I'm sure it will be, a very interesting one for us to try. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Russian River Brewing Company. There will be one added to that in the fairly near future, and hopefully we can do more beyond that at some point soon. I do need to get out to California again and have a little visit to this brewery because it is, so legendary. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly because we do get a nice selection of different beers from different states and things like that over here in Europe now. And yeah, do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Russian River Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So, Russian River Brewing Company was officially founded back in 1997 as the beer brewery for Korbel, Champagne and Cellars from Guerneville in California, but these days they're based in Santa Rosa, which, like I mentioned earlier, is to the north of San Francisco and to the west of Sacramento. So, in the early days, Korbel hired Vinny Cilurzo. I think his name's Italian, so I would guess the pronunciation is Cilurzo. But they hired Vinny Cilurzo as their brewmaster, and he'd worked in his parents' wine business for quite a long time, and then he brewed at the now defunct Blind Pig Brewing Company, also in California, and this was where he was credited with having developed the double IPA style. So yeah, maybe this is why this beer is so legendary actually. But from the early days, Russian River were producing both ales and sour beers using Brettanomyces, and at that time that was, a pretty big step. That was he was one of the kind of pioneers in doing that over in California, from what I understand. But later in 2002, Korbel decided that they were going to leave the beer brewing business behind, and so they sold the company to Vinny and his wife Natalie. So they went on to expand the original brewery in 2004, and then they moved on to a new site eventually in Santa Rosa in 2008. So this brew pub consisted of a 20-barrel system. along with a 50-barrel production kit, which they upgraded once again in 2014. This brewery's always stayed fairly kind of local from what I understand though, so they haven't expanded as much as they probably could have, considering the quality or the esteem that their beers, the esteem in which their beers are held. But they started planning a second brewery in Windsor, just a little bit to the north of Santa Rosa, in 2016. But this was disrupted by the Sonoma County fires of 2017. But they eventually got the new brewery up and running and opened it up to the public in September of 2018. So this new facility composed 85,000 square feet of floor space, and it's got a maximum potential capacity of around 60,000 barrels of beer per year. But they're currently producing at a rate of around 40,000 barrels of beer per year. The original site, from what I understand, is still open as well as a tap room and things, but the new place has a far larger tap room. You can see all the brewery process and things like that, and they've got a big restaurant and things, a big kitchen as part of that tap room as well. But over the years, this brewery have become really highly decorated, with the Pliny the Younger triple IPA being one of their most coveted beers. And as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced roughly 150 different kind of beers, according to Untappd. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Russian River Brewing for the moment. If you go and look at the pictures of their facility, it looks pretty damn impressive actually. It cost them about $50 million to build that new brewery that they have. Apparently they budgeted for around $30 million, and it went $20 million over budget, which is just kind of crazy when you read some of the articles about that. But apparently the cost of things in California just went out of control, you know. Labour shortages and all of this kind of thing really contributed to that. But they're still doing very well from what I understand, and like I said, these guys are a very, very highly regarded Californian craft brewery, and this is one of the legendary American craft beers that everyone wants to try. So yeah, very lucky to be able to review this for you here on the channel, and as I say, I hope that you guys do enjoy my tasting section on this video. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Russian River Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So this one is an 8% West Coast Double IPA, or back in the days when this was made, originally it was just called a Double IPA, but this one is hopped with Amarillo, Centennial, Simcoe and the CTZ blend, I should say. CTZ is what the Americans would say. So that's Columbus, Tomahawk and Zeus. So basically that blend is used for the bittering from what I understand. But Amarillo, we know, is a lovely big oily orangey hop. That was my favourite of the original high alpha acid ones, you know, the Citra, Amarillo, Simcoe. I always loved Amarillo, the big orangey leaning IPAs. Centennial we know is a nice lemony leaning hop, and then Simcoe is that kind of nice oily passion fruity one, like I say. But the artwork on this one is, you know, incredibly simple, but it is iconic, which is probably why, you know, they've never changed it as far as I understand. But there you can see on the bottom of the bottle there, I'll just bring that in so you can see, there is the Russian River. There is the Russian River Brewing Company symbol on this one, which is very, very nice, and you can see the Russian River bottle cap on the top there. So the thing that's striking me as very odd about this is that this is a 500ml bottle. Now, normally this is what you get in Germany, and I'm wondering why you're getting this out in the States, because, you know, the Americans have this really weird measuring system, you know, cups and quarts and all of this kind of stuff that just, to me at least, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, this one, as I say, it should be a really interesting one. It tells you a little bit about Pliny on the side here. So it says, Pliny the Elder was a Roman naturalist, scholar, historian and author. In his writings he refers to Lupulus salictarius, meaning wolf among scrubs, like an early reference to hop vines growing wild among willows. So Pliny the Elder died in 79 AD while saving people during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. He was immortalised by his nephew and adopted son Pliny the Younger. So Pliny the Elder beer is a full-bodied, hop-forward double IPA. Keep refrigerated, consume fresh and enjoy this beer's intense hop character. So yeah, cool to learn that the name, where the name is from, one of the guys who was killed at Vesuvius. Yeah, still need to go and see that. I do need to go and explore Italy a little bit more, and I need to go back to California. I was in California when I was like 4 or 5 or something, so I really don't remember. I've been to the States quite often since then, but not to California yet, so that is something that is definitely on the list. And Russian River will be one of the breweries that we're visiting there. You can rest assured of that. You know, Sierra Nevada, I think, is another one that we've got to do in Northern California and stuff. But yeah, definitely has to be done. But yeah, it's strange that this one is a half-litre bottle. It says on the side here this is 1 pint, 1.25 fluid ounces, 510 millilitres. But like I said, 8%. Double West Coast IPA, this one coming in at 8% ABV. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I'm just really stupidly excited for this. This is going to be awesome. So yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. Oh, lighter in colour than I was expecting, I have to say. But it smells lovely. See that? It smells absolutely lovely. So yeah, that's about 2/3 of it in the glass there. So yeah. Well, yeah, actually a lot brighter and different from what I was expecting it to appear. So yeah, this one has the typical kind of natural haze that you would expect of a West Coast IPA. If I stick my fingers behind the glass there, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this one, but it has that kind of natural haze that you would expect of the West Coast IPA. But I'm just surprised at how bright and yellow that is. This beer looks a little bit akin to like some of the Munich Helles beers that I would drink down in Germany. It's along that kind of colour, lovely kind of bright yellow sort of thing. So yeah, interesting. As you can see, this beer when we poured it, it had about 1/4 to 1/3 of a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream white coloured head. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall it does look pretty nice, and that head has just faded away to be quite a thin foamy layer, and there's just a bit of an island of kind of foam just sitting on the side of that. But yeah, this one I think I can smell it already. It looks very, very nice. Like I say, the thing that surprises me about this beer is that it's so light. The thing that's going to affect the colour of your beer, of course, is how long you boil it for and the types of malts. So either this one doesn't have too much in the way of caramel in it, maybe they're using Turo or Crystal or something like that that doesn't give you quite as dark a colour, and it's maybe a fairly kind of short boil one, this, but usually in IPA they do the boil for about 90 minutes from what I understand, although I think, you know, you do get like 60-minute boils and stuff. You know, Dogfish Head, think about their 60, 90 and 120 minute IPA series. I still need to try those as well actually, but yeah, this one looks very, very nice, and I can tell you straight away the aroma, I've had a whiff of it and it is quite nice. So let's take a closer look at that aroma before we taste it then. Oh, that does smell very, very nice. It's this one, it strikes me as just so old school. For me, this is a really nostalgic beer. You know, just that little whiff I had, it takes me back to, you know, the days of hardcore IPA in Aberdeen back in Scotland. That was always one of my favourite beers. I think you can still get it in the form of Mr. President in Tesco shops back home in Scotland. But yeah, this one, oh, it just smells lovely. Very, very old school smelling beer, this one, but you know, this is, you know, California is where these kind of big, fruity, caramelly, juicy IPAs kicked off. You know, the other legendary beer along these lines would be, you know, the Torpedo, in my mind, from Sierra Nevada, although the Pale Ale is the first one that they kind of kicked off with. But yeah, Torpedo is always has always been a little bit of a favourite of mine as well. So yeah, the flavour of this one is just... or the aroma of this one rather, the brain's not working, the aroma of this one is absolutely lovely. So yeah, very old school. Straight away with this beer, what you're going to notice is it has a lovely kind of white bready base to it. It really is very, very nice. I do think this is Turo or Crystal malt that's in this. There's just something oddly familiar about this, where it has that nice kind of bready base, and it's almost like a kind of sweet bready base, but you've got some nice kind of biscuity notes in it as well. So everything about this malt base just goes together really nicely. Like I say, you can smell lovely little bit of a kind of white bready note out of it. That forms the backbone, and you've got some biscuity and caramelly notes in there as well. So when you take the aroma in quite deeply, you get that big boozy kind of straight up caramelly note out of it. It doesn't come across as toasty, it just comes across as quite boozy and oily, and then you do get these kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes out of this one. So yeah, that is really quite nice. You might pick up one or two little woody notes in the as undertones in this beer, but really I think the malt base in this one is actually quite straight up. White bread, maybe a little touch of bread crust, sweet caramel, and then biscuit kind of sitting on top of that. For me, really quite a straight up malt base, to be honest with you. And sometimes simplicity is better, so maybe that's the approach that this beer is going to take. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's look at that. So yeah, you do get a little touch of earthiness out of this one. You can just pick out a wee touch of that, but you can smell the bittering hops in this. You can smell that kind of CTZ blend in there. You know, Columbus has that really distinctive spicy note to it. Zeus, from what I remember, was a bit more kind of floral and aromatic, and then Zeus, I think, was usually a little bit more kind of. Sorry, we mentioned Zeus. I mean, the Tomahawk was a little bit more kind of spicy as well, from what I remember. Like Columbus and Tomahawk, I remember, were always quite interchangeable. But they were very popular. Amar Brewkus, that I drink a lot of stuff from over in Copenhagen, they use that CTZ blend quite often, from what I understand. So yeah, you've got a really kind of classic kind of green side to this beer. You've got that lovely big kind of spicy floral note there, but you do have a fair degree of aromaticity kind of coming off it. You've got a nice little bit of grassiness too at the front of the nose, and a little bit of a subtle earthiness in at the back. So the green side of the hops, again, really quite classic. This beer, it actually strikes me as quite reserved in its aroma compared to what I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to kind of jump out of the glass at you, but it's actually fairly kind of reserved and just almost placid in certain ways. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of it is really really nice. So the fruity side of things then, yeah, this is where it's really nice. The Simcoe and the Amarillo for me are taking the lead. The Centennial, I think, sits in the background a little bit. So yeah, you get a little bit of that oily kind of passion fruity note from the Simcoe straight away, and you do get a few kind of lighter elements to the tropical side of this beer as well. You might be forgiven for thinking there is a wee touch of mango to this one, and a little bit of apricot as well. And Simcoe in a West Coast IPA, it can give you that. If you put it in a New England IPA, of course, with the oats and stuff, it will give you more of a kind of straight up soft grapefruit. But I think in the West Coast IPA, Simcoe's a little bit more complex, actually. So yeah, for me, a little bit of an oily passion fruit to this one. Then you also get a little bit of a mango-y, apricot-y kind of thing coming out of the beer too. But then you can smell the big oily oranges of the Amarillo. Amarillo these days is essentially been replaced by Mosaic by many brewers, but I still really have a little bit of a soft spot for Amarillo. I love that big oily orangey character that it has. It's just beautiful. But yeah, Centennial, this one, I think the Centennial takes a little bit of a back seat in this, because normally Centennial would be quite pungent, if you like, at the front of the nose, giving you a big lemony zesty character. And in fairness, with this beer, I don't get too much of that. I think it's the Simcoe and I really think the Simcoe and the Amarillo are just kind of being a little bit more outspoken in this beer, to be honest with you. That's what I really get out of this one. So yeah, this one, in terms of its aroma, I think really quite nice. A little bit more subtle and reserved than I thought it was going to be, in fairness, but once you take the beer in, you let it open up a little bit on the nose, it does come across as really nice. Very old school for me, and it does, like I say, remind me of the old hardcore IPA, which was my first exposure to the double IPA style, and then beyond that it was the Torpedo, was my first American one that I had, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this now and see how we go. So yeah, this one is the Pliny the Elder 8% double West Coast IPA from Russian River Brewing Company in Santa Rosa and Windsor, in the kind of San Francisco, just to the north of San Francisco and west of Sacramento, Northern California. Again, huge thank you to Chris for this one. Let's get stuck into this beer. Slàinte skål. Oh yeah, that is really pretty nice, actually. Yeah. yeah, that's really quite nice. The first thing that's striking me about this is just how easy that is to drink. You know, it's definitely a little bit more kind of bready leaning and biscuity leaning than I thought it was going to be, to be honest with you. And, you know, the comparison I would make with this one would be the Torpedo. The Torpedo is a big oily, caramelly sort of thing. So this one really kind of shows you, for me, if you think about these two beers, that kind of shows you the full spectrum of what a West Coast IPA can be. This one strikes me as more bready and slightly more biscuity, whereas Torpedo is a big oily, caramelly sort of thing. So yeah, this one really makes me think a little bit more about the whole scope of what a West Coast IPA can actually be. So yeah, food for thought with this one, definitely. But I can see immediately why this beer is really highly regarded. And again, I've said this about a few American beers, it's the thing that I think is just insane over there, is that, you know, in America you have to drive everywhere. You get people driving to these breweries and you're drinking a few of these and then driving home. It's just insanity to me. Because in some of these beers, with the New Englands and with this one, you know, you're drinking these 8% double IPAs. They go down stupidly easily. But yeah, I mean, the main thing to take away is that this is just a beautiful beer. This one, massive thumbs up to Russian River on this one. I can see why this is highly rated. It's not. I have to say, it's not what I expected. I didn't expect such a bright and bready leaning West Coast IPA, but you know, when you think about the colour of this one, it really kind of makes sense, to be honest with you. It is more of a bready leaning beer, this one, so it's probably a crystal and like two-row and stuff that's in this, I would think. And this beer's in really good condition as well, actually. Yeah, curious to see this. But like I say, there's a few different versions of this beer. There's the Pliny the President, or Pliny for President, which is the dry hopped version, and then there's the Pliny the Younger, which is the triple IPA. I don't think they bottle the Pliny the Younger, if I remember rightly, or they only started doing it recently, but that is one that I would like to try at some point as well. So maybe can get a bottle of that when I make it out to California eventually. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer though and see how we go on. But you will see me review Pliny the President very soon. I'll maybe publish that review on the day of the American election, we'll see. Yeah, let's go for this one. So yeah, straight away with this beer, I think the one thing to say about this too is it does sweeten up the more you drink of it. But yeah, straight away with this beer you get that nice, you get a nice kind of smooth white bready base that just blankets the beer. If you go towards the back third of your palate, you can feel it does thicken up a little bit. You get a little bit more of a thicker white bready note there. If you go to the very back of your tongue, there's a few kind of grainy notes coming off it as well. But yeah, the white bready note on the back third of your tongue is really quite smooth in that sense. But yeah, as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, you can feel the thickness of the bread just drops down a little bit, and then you've got a nice oily, kind of slightly brown sugary note just sitting on top of that, which is really, really nice. So yeah, that kind of brown sugary note you can feel in the very centre of your palate. It's quite a bright, sweet caramel that's there, but then that oily kind of bubble that sits there on top of the bread, you can feel as you move further out towards the edge of the palate. It's got a really nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of vibe to it actually, and I really like how that, kind of pieces itself together. It's really very nice. You do get a wee bit more booziness out of this one the more that you drink of it. And I'm just, even with that though, I'm still surprised at how drinkable this beer is. It's stupidly easy to drink. But yeah, it really is. The malt base of this one is very, very nice. There's one or two little, almost slightly woody undertones to the beer, which you sometimes get. If you go to the front corners of the palate then, just move diagonally back a little bit, there is a wee bit of that, how do you say, just a little bit of a kind of woody undertone to this beer. But I really think, just going by the flavours of the malt here, that nice kind of smooth breadiness that it has, and then the wee kind of brown sugar there, I'm pretty sure this one It's a mixture of like crystal and crystal and two-row, different, some kind of different two-row malts in there. The American two-rows for me, I always used to really like those. We don't get, not too many European breweries use those. Most of the malt that European breweries use, I believe, is German. There's quite a bit of Belgian malt as well, and a few British ones, English ones rather, like Maris Otter and stuff. But yeah, the flavour profile of this, the malt base in this one is really nice. But as I say, the thing that surprises me about this is that it's definitely more, it's one of the more bready leaning West Coast IPAs for me, and I didn't expect that from it actually. I really did not expect that, but it's certainly a nice surprise, let's say that. So yeah, I think we've covered the malt base as much as we need to, in fairness. I think it's quite a straight shooter, but it's just really well crafted. It's very, very well crafted actually. So yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness coming out of the beer. As you move further forward along the sides of the tongue, you can feel that kind of nice kind of spiciness bittering. This beer does have a little bit of dankness in it. I probably would wonder if I was tasting this one if it had a little bit of Chinook in there. But yeah, you do get a little bit of, you do get quite a bit of spiciness there and some big floral aromaticity coming out of the beer, which is quite nice. And then around the front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and grassy, but in fairness, you can feel a little bit of that floral note just spreading around there as well. But yeah, the front third of the tongue is where you get that nice oily bubble, where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And for me, the fruitiness in this one, it's nice and oily, and as I say again, it's almost it strikes me as quite reserved in some ways. This is one of these beers that it really strikes me as one where it's brewed with the idea that all the flavours just kind of work well together. It's not brewed with mind, so this is going to be a big oily beast of a fruity IPA, or it's going to be a big beast of a caramelly IPA. This is just brewed. This is one of these ones that's brewed for everything just to fit together really nicely, and it does that very, very well in my opinion. So I really like how this beer goes together in that sense. Well balanced beers for me, just kind of suit me down to the ground actually. But yeah, fruity side of this is nice as well. So yeah, on the front third of your palate, then if you go towards the back of that, you get a little bit of the kind of more oily passion fruity note, which is that's the Simcoe. That is the Simcoe. I guess the bittering hops will give you a wee bit of an almost grapefruity flavour, and you can get that very dark grapefruity flavour just underneath. But yeah, the darker part of the fruity side of the beer is more kind of passion fruity. But as you move further forward from that, you will get little hints of mango and almost a wee hint of apricot out of it. But as you reach the front half of that front third of your tongue, the Amarillo oiliness comes out of this one really quite nicely actually. The Amarillo, the orangey notes are not quite as big and oily as I've had with from some beers that have Amarillo in them, but they do just give you that kind of oily citrusy note that you want from the hop. And as you reach the very tip of the tongue, you can feel the Centennial. The Centennial comes across, as I say, not quite as bold again as some of the beers that I've had that use these hops, but yeah, it does really just kind of sit there. And as you go further into the aftertaste, I think the Centennial really starts to rear its head a little bit more, and you do get more and more of the oily orange. So what I would say about this beer is that when you examine this one going further into the aftertaste, I think it becomes more and more oily, and then it just sweetens up both on the fruity side of things and on the malty side of things too. So it makes a really interesting kind of development, this beer, the more and more that you drink of it. But yeah, it is beautifully done, we have to say. It kind of shows you if you compare this and the Torpedo, it really shows you the two ends of the spectrum that you can have with the West Coast IPA. As I said earlier, Torpedo more of an oily caramelly beast, this one a little bit more kind of bready and kind of smooth, if you like. So yeah, this beer, I have to say, overall it was not what I expected. It isn't what I expected it to be, but I really do like it. I really like this one. So yeah, again, thumbs up to Russian River on this, and I'm curious to see what the Pliny for President is going to be like as well with the dry hop, and I think that could be quite interesting. So yeah, on the mouthfeel then, what would we say about this? For me, it's kind of top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. It does have a degree of oiliness to it, but it's not the most oily West Coast IPA or West Coast double IPA that I've come across before. There's a good chunk of hoppy bitterness to this. This one has to be at least 80 IBUs. It has to be up there. You know, some of these breweries will brew their beers to be 100 IBUs, the kind of saturation point, if you like. Yeah, this one's got to be at least 80. This has the proper bitterness that you would want of this style. And again, the more you go into the aftertaste with this beer, you also get a good little bit of that spicy note coming out from both the Tomahawk and the Columbus components of the CTZ blend that's in here. I would surmise that those beers, those hops rather, are being used in the bittering stage of the brewing. You know, as I've told you before, if you add the hops in the early stage of the boil, that's when you get the most bitterness out of them. But as you progress through the boil, if you like, the 90-minute boil, when you reach the last half hour, that's when you start to get the hops kind of becoming more flavour and aroma orientated. So any hop addition after that kind of initial hour, you get more and more flavour and aroma out of them rather than the bitterness. The bitterness drops away quite rapidly. But yeah, really nice. Really nice beer, this one, in terms of how that bitterness builds. So yeah, you go further into the aftertaste, more floral aromatic bitterness and more oily kind of notes coming out of it too. But like I say, malt base, quite smooth underneath, a straight up kind of white bready character, a little bit of an oily kind of sweet caramel, quite a bright sweet caramel, and a bit of a biscuity note underneath. Good little bit of oily fruits, but as I say, not the most oily fruits that I've come across. It leans a little bit more towards the tropical side of things, in fairness, but you get a wee bit of the citrusy zest going further into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, but 80 IBUs, smooth malt base in there with just a little bit of oily sweetness on top. Then a nice kind of juicy, oily, fruity character as well. So yeah, I think that kind of sums up the mouthfeel of this beer quite well. Yeah, top end of mid-bodied is a good place, a good area of the spectrum to place this beer upon. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think we've described the flavour profile of this beer really well. I'm really happy that I was able to try this. This beer really was not what I expected of it, I have to say, but it's really shown me another side of what the West Coast IPA can be, because like I say, this is one of the iconic ones, and you know, maybe I've criticised a couple of West Coast IPAs in the past for being a little bit kind of too bready, if you like, but you know, this one is considered kind of legendary, I would say, and I like this one. I do like that kind of slightly almost crisp breadiness that this beer has. Yeah, it reminds me in some ways of some of the German brewed West Coast IPAs I've had. They've got a big smooth breadiness to them, but a really big oily sweetness as well. So this one strikes me as quite a reserved and just really well balanced beer. It's one of these ones that doesn't try to make any single aspect of it stand out. It's really just very well blended, and I think that's the reason why it really well blended and balanced, and I think that's why this beer has the status that it does. So yeah, I think that's a good point to kind of round off on this one. So yeah, again, huge thank you to Chris for making this review possible. I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Russian River Brewing Company too. You will see the Pliny for President, I was going to say, reviewed, and hopefully we can do Pliny the Younger and a few of their other beers at some point in the near future. But this was a really interesting one to review. I'm glad I got to review this legendary American beer, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on it as well. So yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Russian River Brewing Company as well. Do give me some other Californian brewery recommendations, and yeah, check out my social media and all that kind of thing. But this one was the Pliny the Elder, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Russian River Brewing Company in Santa Rosa and Windsor, to the north of San Francisco, sorry, and to the west of Sacramento in Northern California over in America. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slange, skål, cheers. If you do get the chance to try Pliny the Elder, you are very lucky and you're not going to regret it. Cheers.